Hello and welcome to this video where I get to interview the wonderful and beautiful Holly Boullé, who I met recently. We met via Facebook, just kind of resonated, and Holly invited me to be interviewed on her Healing Business podcast, which we did only last week, actually. And if you haven't seen it, the link is in the description and the video will be in the end screen. So it was very much Holly interviewing me, but in the course of that interview, so many interesting things came out of Holly's mouth. And I was left thinking, hang on a minute, I want to know so much more about this amazing soul that is, I want to say, rocking it for humanity at this time of the Great Awakening. There's loads of interesting things like the Zen Buddhist meditation. I was like, I'd love to hear more about that, which is clearly one of your motorways to enlightenment. And of course, studying the Vedic scriptures and stuff like that. Super, super relevant. And also, of course, she's now created the Medicine Woman Collective, which is her offerings to the world at this time. So there is so much to dive into. Where do you want to start, Holly?
Don't mind at all, wherever you want to go.
Shall we start at the beginning of your journey and how you actually got to where you are now?
Yeah, okay. I don't know about you, but I can find it really hard to go, where did it start? Because it feels like there's
incarnation.
Yeah. And it kind of feels like it started way before it officially started in terms of my journey. So I suppose as a kid growing up, I was always I grew up actually and went to a Catholic school. So I went to a Catholic primary school, I went to a Catholic middle school. And although I didn't necessarily resonate with everything that was said, I certainly resonated with, like, I used to quite enjoy going to church. I used to love like the smell of the incense. I used to love like the singing that would happen. And I was really lucky to have our local priest and my teachers, and I had some teachers that were nuns. And actually what I remember is all of them really embodied the Christian values. So they were really kind of heart open, loving, kind, and you really felt held in their presence. So that really stayed with me, although I didn't necessarily resonate with Christianity as a religion. It wasn't something that it felt right for me. And then I suppose in my teenage years, I began to dabble in things like pagan paths. I wanted to understand the pagan side of things. That seemed to make more sense to me in terms of, I grew up on the Isle of Wight, which is, there was never a lot going on, but we had our beaches and, our woods. And so most of my childhood was brought up in nature, really. And that was one of the things I loved about the pagan path, was this kind of connection with nature, which I really loved. And then in my 20s, I was focusing on things like my children and my marriage and my career, but a lot of that had so I worked in human resources for years. So I love the psychology element. I love understanding why we do the things we do. And so that was like a big part of my journey. I trained to be a coach. I used to support people as a mental health first aider and all of these things. I love understanding why we do the things we do and helping people to move past blocks in terms of like their career where people have got stuck. And so I did a lot of coaching around career progression. I used to love watching people come to me saying, oh well, I really want to go for this job and I don't think I'm ready, and then a few months later they've got the position. And that used to I loved that element. But then in I was about 30, I had my youngest, and after having him, after a really simple pregnancy, simple birth, I started getting aches and pains in my back, and I thought, oh, well, I've put something out during the labor. So I was back and forth to chiropractors and osteopaths, and then that gradually got worse and worse, and to the point that we moved house, and the next day my knee just ballooned, like
Wow.
double the size. And I was back and forth with the doctors. They didn't know what it was. And in the end, I said to them, look, shall I go private? Because it got to the point where it's like a year down the line, we were no closer to figuring anything out. And they kept just giving me tablets to like deal with the pain, and nothing was really helping or working. The inflammation was everywhere. So I went private, and I was in the lucky position to have that covered by my work at the time. And we found out it was rheumatoid arthritis, and there was no kind of history, no reason why I should have it. And so I kept saying to them, so why? I'm a why person, right? Even as a kid, I was a why person. So I was like, so why? And they couldn't really help. But I went to a rheumatologist. We've got a really good rheumatology department on the island. And I remember saying to my consultant, look, I don't want to be on tablets for the rest of my life. It like I'd gone from being someone who didn't want to take paracetamol to like being on chemotherapy drugs, basically, to manage this. Because I was going up and down the stairs on my bum. I couldn't lift my newborn son. It was horrific. And that kind of was the catalyst for the rest of this journey. And, you know, I look back at that time and I'm just enormously grateful. But I can remember at the time I didn't feel like that. And so I started this journey of, well, initially it was, I could see my mental health was going down, like spiraling. I'd lost my sense of identity. I'd gone from being this who I'd perceived to be a strong, independent woman who was she was a mum of three and a career woman at the same time. And I thought I was looking after myself, you know, I was doing the running and I was eating the salads. And so this was like a big shock to the system. And I could just feel my mental health on the decline. And which was really unusual for me. I've always been quite a positive person. And so I remember coming down from the chiropractor's office, who I was still seeing regularly, to try and keep everything in line, to try help ease some of the pain I was in. And there was a thing on the notice board for Zen meditation. And I'd dabbled, you know, I'd meditated on and off throughout my life, really. I'd listened to visualizations and guided meditations, and I'd done, in my teens, I'd done some kind of, you know, self-led meditations when I was looking at the Pagan path and things like that, but it hadn't necessarily stuck with me. But, you know, I would listen to guided meditations. That was really my only experience with meditation. But I just had this deep sense of, this is what I need. That's it. And I remember phoning up the teacher, and at the time I didn't have a lot of money, because like I'd been on a lot of sick pay and stuff like that. And I remember phoning her up and saying, look, I'm sorry, this is really cheeky, but is there any chance I can pay you weekly as opposed to like the lump sum for this course? And so we had a chat, and she said, yeah, that's fine. And so that's where I discovered Zen Buddhist meditation. And there was that really transformed my life. It transformed the way that I viewed myself, viewed my circumstances. It allowed me to find that stillness, to access the wisdom within, and start to discern between what's my inner voice and what's conditioning. And as part of that, I also discovered I was quite sensitive to energy, and I had never really knew that before. I knew there were certain situations where I'd feel uncomfortable. Like, I've always hated supermarkets. You know, big crowds and things, not my cup of tea. You know, I can do a music festival. I'm happy with the music festival, but yeah, there's certain situations where energy wise, I've always been quite sensitive. And I look back now and, you know, that was why I was good in human resources. I could pick up on people's energy. I knew where they were at. And my intention was always, how can we get to where we need to get to, but with that person getting the best from the situation. So that ability to pick up on emotion and energy has always served me really well. But it also had, you know, shadows to it, as those things always do. And so I remember doing this energy meditation as part of the course, and I was sat there feeling completely overwhelmed by what I just experienced. And I remember my teacher was going around the room asking people, you know, how did you find that? What did you experience? Those sort of questions. And I can remember, like, I was just shocked because a lot of people were like, well, I don't think I really felt anything, and I'm there feeling nauseous because of the sheer amount of energy we had been working with. And she came to me and I said, I'm not sure I like that. And she said, what do you mean? I said, it felt too much. In fact, I think I need to step outside. Can I step outside? And that's not like me at all. She was like, yeah, go step outside. And I just felt like I just had to ground, and I didn't even probably understand that language at that point, but just like connect to my breath and find that grounded presence again and let everything settle. And I remember she came out afterwards and she said, I think you're quite sensitive to energy. I said, I didn't even know what that meant. Do you know what I mean? I was like, what does that mean? And so she talked to me about, you know, understanding energy, and she said, I think we need to get you through your Reiki training. She said, because you're going to find it so useful in terms of your day-to-day life and being able to, you know, work with your energy as well as where to keep that barrier between yours and other people's. And so we did that, and my mind was kind of blown. And Reiki still blows my mind, right? I've been practicing it for years and I still find it amazing how, you know, everyone has a different experience of Reiki, but for me, I when I'm working with someone, I just know things. So I will know things that I couldn't possibly know, and it still blows my mind. Like, how do I know that? I don't know, but it's true. And then this kind of became a bit of an obsession with energy, because I thought, well, if there's energy in people and there's energy in my body and there's energy in nature, like, how can I take this further? And at this point, I was still really struggling with my physical health. And so I thought, well, what practices work with energy on the physical body? And I wanted something truly holistic, as opposed to, I think yoga is holistic in terms of, you know, like when we look at the Yoga Sutras and things. But what I mean is, you know, I wanted to think about, how does energy affect my diet? How does energy affect the way I'm living my life? How does energy affect like supplements and herbs I'm taking in? So I started receiving, as is often the case, like these little synchronicities. And so like I'd pick up a book that I'd had for 10 years and it would mention the word Ayurveda. And then a magazine subscription that I'd had for years started talking about Ayurveda. And like Facebook ads would start to come up, or, you know, like podcasts. And there was, I can't remember what it was one day. Oh, it was a workshop that came up, and I went, okay, I'm listening. I'm going to do this online workshop. And after doing it, I was like, I need to do the training. I need to do the training. As was often the case during that period of my life, I was like, I don't have the money, but I need to find the money. And lo and behold, I found the money. And so I started my Ayurveda training, and that allowed me to manage my physical body, but it also gave me greater levels of depth and breadth in terms of my spiritual practice, how I work with my mind, understanding like the Vedic lens of the psychology I'd been reading about for years from a Western point of view, and seeing the overlap, and how, like, from my humble opinion, I think in the West sometimes we like to think we're far more advanced. And I'm reading Ayurveda and I'm like, why do they understand more about my condition from 5,000 years ago than my rheumatologist does now? And so that's certainly been my experience. Like, Ayurveda has explained more to me about my condition than Western science could. And because of that, because it looked at everything that was going on in my life, I could then start making some really calculated changes around, okay, so what is the life that is going to serve me, serve my body, serve my family, and still allow me to feel fulfilled. And so initially I just became super passionate about helping other people that were in my situation, because I just knew how debilitating, emotionally draining, and mentally frustrating the whole process was. And so I started my business. I was doing Reiki treatments and Ayurvedic health coaching. And then that's just kind of grown and grown over time, which was never like the big dream. You know, there was never a big dream, but now it's come to the point of, my question has always been, how can I have the greatest impact? You know, the greatest impact for other people in this situation. And I could see quite early on that there's only one of me, and so I can only do so much. So I started to create my certified training programs so that actually, you know, I can train more people and they can go help as many people as possible. And I spend a lot of my time now focusing on, you know, running the certified trainings, but also supporting the people that go through the trainings through like business mentorship, because that's a whole new healing journey in itself, right? Is, you know, being comfortable putting yourself out there, facing those fears that you have, and also getting past those little blocks that we have around, you know, it's not good to earn money, or it's not spiritual to earn money, and helping them to create businesses that allow them to thrive and not struggle. Because I think that's a paradigm we can get stuck in the healing world that doesn't serve anyone, and if anything, just depletes the healer themselves. So, wow, that was a whistle-stop tour of my life.
I think it's amazing. I think it's amazing. Yeah, wow. Because so you love doing the healing business podcast.
Yeah.
And so you're really passionate about talking to other people about their healing businesses, which is interesting because we're talking about paradigm shifts, aren't we? And when we do the paradigm shifts, there's kind of a shift in the energy of words as well, isn't there? Because I'm not a big fan of the word business, but it I understand everything that you're saying. You know, I mean, loving money, obviously, you know, love money, and it comes, it goes, it comes, it goes, you know.
Yeah.
And I think it's meant to, right? Come and go and come and go. And what I'm noticing is the amount of people I know that live in absolute abundance, right? So they have no problems paying any of their expenses. They are able to pay for everything and anything that they want and need, right? But they very rarely have a lot in the bank account at any one time.
Yeah.
And I'm really noticing that, because I think that's the new abundance of the new paradigm. Because I also know a lot of people who don't put themselves out there and don't follow their heart and their passion, hobbies, or whatever it might be, because they are fixated on seeing a certain amount in the bank account, and they're getting their sense of security and their sense of self-worth, their self-esteem, their sense of freedom. I mean, all these things that we want from money, they're getting it from that number in the bank account as opposed to inside. And I'm noticing with this great awakening that whatever we value outside of us could become a tower card moment.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing it. A lot of people will lose their most valuable. It could be a person, it could be their finances, it could be their business, it could be their house, it could be, it doesn't matter what, but whatever they've hung their self-esteem on outside of themselves, there's a very high chance on their spiritual journey, in order to wake them up, they may lose it. I'm really seeing that. But as for just loving money, I think that's a good one. We need to, I love money and money loves me, because there is this, almost there's a stigma about even saying I love money, because the people, we're thinking, oh, you're greedy, then you want lots of money. And it's like, well, I want it, I spend it, it doesn't stay long. There's always,
it's a resource, right?
It's an energy. It's an energy, like everything else. It's like water. I need water. Water comes in, I drink it, it flows through me, and then it goes again. I don't keep water. Well, I have got a little water tank, but I have a little bank account, a little water tank. But it's the same thing to me. I just see it completely as energy. And since I started doing that, everything changed. And because it's where the blocks are. If it's flowing, then there's no blocks, right? But when you have a block in that flow, it's like the water, isn't it? Things go stagnant. So and the same with emotional energy, of course. When there's a block in emotional energy, things go stagnant inside of us.
Well, and that's often a good indicator, right, when it comes to money, is when you think about money, is there emotional reaction in your body?
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, especially I find it, especially with people that are drawn to the healing world, and I think it's because we have that kind of thought process of I'm not in it for the money, and none of us are, right? None of us are in it for the money.
We just can't not do it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so I love watching when you can help someone move past those blocks, because they're like, you don't have to worry about it then, right? It just is something that's just looked after. It just gets done.
It goes hand in hand with just trusting, because we are the creators of our own reality. So we have to trust ourselves, or trust the universe, however you want to word it. Just trust that, we are the ones creating our reality, and we're creating it for our own benefit. So why would there be a problem? Why are we creating a problem? No, just create whatever you want. I mean, I think it's just the old paradigm of the word business, because there are so many people that run themselves ragged for their business, and their only objective is to make money, and they're not living in health and happiness, and they're not in love, and they're and that kind of, if your business is making a shed load of money, you're considered to be a success regardless of your health and happiness. So that's kind of what we're changing now, isn't it? It's like, even if we didn't need the money, I often ask people, if you had 17 million of whatever currency you want in the bank, I'm not asking you to spend that. I'm just saying the point is, you don't need to make money. If you didn't need to make money, how would you spend your days? And I think that's a really important question to ask people, because whatever comes out of their mouth is what they need to be doing, basically.
Yeah, completely. But one of the things that I can find is, because we have so much conditioning around that, right, that actually sometimes we're scared of the success as well. We're scared. We put kind of correlations in our head between what that means. So, if my practice, if my business, if my whatever you call it, starts to generate too much money, then that means I'm going to have to give up this, or I'm going to have to there's got to be a compromise. So that's another thing I love to break down, because actually that's rarely the case. I found that in my business, generally, the more I earn, the more freedom I have to focus on the parts of my business I enjoy, and I can outsource, or, you know, I've got a couple of fabulous VAs who are amazing, and I love the fact that I'm resourced to do that, and I love the fact that I can then provide them with an income, and so
doing what they're good at and doing what they enjoy. Yeah,
that's it, and they're brilliant at it. And yeah, so I love just knocking down those, and you'll get this because you love the belief work, don't you? And I do. Where those knocking down those dominoes of,
it doesn't have to be this way. It can be
those
any
rules.
way. Yeah, it can be any way, any way you choose. Yeah. No, I mean, that's interesting. I love all of that. I do want to go back to some of the things that you said, because well, no, because they just resonated with me. So you talked about the pagan path. I don't know whether we mentioned this before, probably not, but about the land clearing that I did. Did we talk about that before? And that there was these pagans of Pago was the word that came to me, these women dancing around the fire, and they come to people when they're having healing sessions, and it's just amazing. I mean, and then people know about them that have never been to the garden retreat. It's just like something's going on. And I was thinking about your journey when you were talking about when you had the problem with your leg and everything, and it was like, you know, we're never really going to find solutions, and if we just stick to the physical, you know, it's when we dive into the non-physical underlying causes of things that we actually, you know, come alive and start realizing our full potential. And these pagans of Pago are clearly in a non-physical form, and yet people are seeing them and experiencing healing through them right in our tent in the garden. And it's quite humbling, actually, because there's a part of me that isn't quite ready for some of the stuff that's coming up, if you know what I mean. I mean, I can resonate with it. And when people talk about, oh, these women that helped me, and I said, well, did you know them? No. And then they described them, and they were exactly like the ones, you know, and I'm like, oh, maybe it was the pagans of Pago. And then they get those truth bumps, you know. And then I'm just like, it keeps happening, and it's almost like the divine is just introducing me to something poco, right? Because my human mind will get blown, I think, if it all comes in too much. But I'm really seeing this because everything's happening in the now, right? So they're not from the past. They are us now. And I've had people come into the garden and just want to cry because they've been here before. We've been here, or me and them have been here before in another lifetime, what have you, which is, so I do want to hear about your pagan path, because you talked about working with the pagan path. And what does that mean exactly?
So it kind of started, you know, I see it as lucky enough. I was lucky enough to be brought up in the 90s. And so like the alternative, you know, there was alternative shops everywhere, you know, crystal shops here, and especially on the Isle of Wight. The Isle of Wight's got a lot of pagan roots of Druidism, and so there's a lot of kind of spiritual shops and alternative spiritual shops here. But also at that time, there was a lot of things in kind of like the pop culture at that time. There was movies around that were about things like Wicca, and I can't even really remember how it started, but it may have been in like our local crystal shop, which I hung out in far too often, still do. It's one of those you can't pass by. Like I'll pop in and I think I'll just pick up some incense, and before I know it, I bought, you know, a new crystal, and well, that salt lamp looks nice, and you know, and I think it was my best friend and I picked up a book in there on Wicca. I'm wondering if I still have it. I'd probably have it on my bookshelf somewhere. I've got loads of books. And what really struck me was like the connection and this is mirrored in Ayurveda, which is really interesting, but the connection with the seasons and how they affect us, and the different energies that change throughout the year, and how they affect our own energetic resonance, and how actually, if we're not careful, that can pull us out of balance. And if we try and work against it too much, or if, you know, certain times of the year we do have to work against it, otherwise it drags us down. So that the seasons is something that I've always been a little bit fascinated with, even as a child. I mean, I still find it magical, right, that we have certain times of the year when all the flowers pop open, and then like for me, autumn, I love autumn, and just, you know, the woods is where I feel most at home. And so like walking through the woods when like the leaves are falling and they're turning, it's to me, it feels like just natural magic around you. So I began working with like the seasons and understanding that side of things. But also, one of the things that Wicca really taught me was the power of intention. And, you know, you can call it spells, you can call it magic, but I think whatever lens we look at this through, even if we look at it from a Western psychology lens, or, you know, a spiritual lens, in terms of, you know, where you focus, that's where the energy flows. It was something that I would see happening, and I was just a bit blown away by this, just having the intention for something to happen or to come true, or and then opportunities would emerge. And so I you know, we worked what might be termed spells, and I'm reluctant to use that word, if I'm honest, because I think we all do this all the time anyway. It's just, it's more ritualized in Wicca. And you know what? I liked the ritual. I liked the ceremony. And again, it's one of the other things I love about Ayurveda is there's ritual and there's ceremony. And, you know, it could take me back to that kind of little girl that was fascinated by church on Sunday. Do you know what I mean? The smell of incense. And, you know, I've got resin incense here that my kids laugh because it's the Three Kings incense. And so it completely smokes out the house. But and the house will smell like a church afterwards, and I love it. It just makes, yeah, it just that frankincense and the myrrh, it just, you know, they are resins that do heighten our vibration anyway, and they heighten our connection, that, you know, they're really working on that crown chakra. So for me, I just feel most connected when I'm in that space of ritual and ceremony and intention. And I think there's it, you know, it's sad that many people in the West, due to things like, and I completely get it, don't get me wrong, the decline in religion, we've lost a lot of our ceremony. And, you know, we only have ceremony for the weddings or the funerals, or and I think there's real medicinal benefits in that, in having your practices and having your routines, and in taking that time to pause, reflect, find stillness, and remember that there's far more to life than just this little ego that's running around trying to do things and get so sucked into their own self-importance. I think that's perhaps something that we can all benefit from, more of that. So does that help?
Yeah.
Does that
No,
explain?
it does, because I don't really know much about like pagans. I've heard the word and everything, and it's coming into my reality now. But my understanding is, I mean, you're using other words, but I would use the word celebration as well, because of course the image that I had when I did the land clearing was women dancing around a fire. You know, they were dancing and singing and enjoying themselves and getting together and all of this. And when I oh, I'm getting truth bumps now. When I did the intention for the garden retreat, I thought, oh, I'll just put a little intention about healing and stuff like that. And as I went to write it, and even though I do kind of channel with the cards, I rarely do the automatic writing channeling, which a lot of channelers do. I rarely do that. It doesn't usually happen that way for me. But I was sitting there writing the intention, or I probably was typing it even, and it suddenly came through me and not from me. And one of the reasons that I know it came through me and not from me was because the word celebration came up. I was going to say something like, you know, the intention of the garden retreat is to provide healing activities to help raise your frequency and expand your level of consciousness. But what came through was healing and celebratory activities. And that word came through, and it kind of really, I was like, oh, really? Are we doing that? And it's funny what you said about the seasons. Obviously, there's a pagan in me, and I'm learning about it, because we officially opened on the summer solstice, because we put the tent up in April, and then we got overwhelmed in May, people just wanting to come. Clearly there's a past life thing going on. There was an energy draw, and it overwhelmed us, so I had to kind of close everything down and get myself sorted and going, oh, what's going on, you know. And then we officially opened on the 21st of June. And so we do these lovely events at the winter and summer solstice, where we offer, James does his sound healing, you know, and I do my card readings, and well, at least on the 21st of June, I put some yoga in, because it is also International Yoga Day that day. And we have Liz Nagel that comes and does the guided meditations as well. But I also felt drawn to celebrating the equinoxes. And I don't know much about these things, but I'm just drawn to do it. So last year, we just had a picnic in the garden. You know, there was no theme or anything. It was just a picnic in the garden, which was lovely. And this year, next week, of course, we're doing the picnic in the garden again, but I'm asking people, you know, if they have a passion hobby or something that they love to share, whether it's taster sessions or products that they want to sell, or just chat about it, whatever they do, and have flyers or examples or anything like this. I don't really know how it's going to pan out, but I just have this passion to promote people that are passionate, because I'm understanding what comes through with the messages with the cards is always, you know, our future lies in us following our passions. We realize that that's what's taking us forward, and life was never meant to be a struggle. We realize that as well. And I always imagine that these souls or these angels or whatever are looking down thinking, how are we going to get these humans to do what they're meant to be doing and expand into more of who they are, so they can raise the consciousness level of humanity? I know, we'll just give them these gifts that they just can't help but use. You know, we're going to give them inspirations that they're going to not be able to resist, you know. And then of course they did that, and what happened was we got programmed and told, you know, you can't, life's not meant to be a bed of roses. It's like, you're meant to go to work all week, and if you're lucky you can practice whatever it is at the weekend. I mean, even now, you know, people say that, and it's like, no, it's not meant to be like that. It's you're given these inspirations, you're given these, like you going to your, you know, the Zen meditation and the, you know, Ayurveda. You know, not everyone's inspired to do that, and definitely not everyone's inspired to put these two things together. This is also, I think, the biggest key, is that we're inspired to do all of these things, and then we go and put them all together in our offerings, which is where we get our beautiful uniqueness from. And that's what I think is lovely. And I just love, you know, when I say promoting, I don't mean like in a business marketing way. I just love meeting and hearing about and letting other people, you know, it's not so much about promoting the person that's passionate, it's about letting the masses that need to be on the receiving end of this passion, you know, find out more about all these things that are on offer, because people will just resonate with the right people at the right time for the right reasons. And that's really become a theme in my life, is where promoting people with passions. So I'm hoping next week's autumn equinox picnic in the garden will have a lot of passionate people sharing their ideas and stuff. And clearly one of our intentions, although we didn't know it at the time, is just to bring people together, which is important, isn't it? But what I love about this, because this is why I've got the interviews and chats section on my channel, because I was really into interviewing people like yourself that are so passionate and so good at what they do, and, you know, rocking it for humanity at this time of the Great Awakening. It's just so important, I think. And it was funny because, you know, I'm really into astrology, but I don't study it, but I know the people to go to. And I had my I was looking into my North Node, which is the direction that our soul wants to go in this lifetime, as opposed to the South Node, which is where we're comfortable. So it's all about leaving your comfort zone still, right? And my North Node, I found this out after I started doing that series with Liz, right? Self Mastery with Liz Nagel. And tapping into her wisdom. And then I was wondering why I was so inspired to do it. My North Node is all about promoting other people and giving other people the limelight, because my South Node, being Sagittarius, is very me. And I can quite relate to that, to be honest. There was a lot of me going on. And now my North Node, you know, where I'm going, wants me to give other people the voice. And for someone that talks a lot like me, you know, that's kind of interesting. But it's interesting how I was doing it. And then I looked in the astrology, and that's where I'm meant to be going. And it's just beautiful, isn't it, to have all these different channels whereby we get that confirmation. We get that confirmation that we're on the right track and doing the right thing. Do you find that?
Oh, completely. Yeah, and I love looking at all of those things. You know, I've had my birth chart read, and funny enough, this morning I went down the Gene Keys rabbit hole off the back of a podcast, and that was really interesting in the respect of, it said, you know, you've moved past the shadow, basically, when you're basically helping the masses, but it's not about you. And so I thought that is interesting, because that's where the business has got to. It's no longer about me. It's about the people I've trained, and showcasing them and showcasing other healers around the world, like with the Healing Business podcast. And it's nice because it feels good, right? To go to have that validation of, yeah, I know I'm on the right path, but it's nice that someone else is telling me that.
Exactly. And you only have to follow your heart to be on the right path, don't you? But what I love about what you're saying, and this is a phrase that the lovely Liz gave me, and I'm really seeing it, is like the leadership role, because we're coming from a paradigm whereby our leaders haven't been leading with the highest intention of all. And what kind of leaders do we want going forward? And I've never viewed myself as a leader before. And Liz was going, well, yes, you are. And I was like, where am I a leader? I might be a teacher, you know, on some level, but not so much a leader. And then she said, you lead from behind. And then I was like, oh, see, now I've got truth bumps, really. Because, you know, leading from behind is exactly promoting people, letting people see the passion within themselves, letting people see the power within themselves, letting people see the energy within themselves, so that they can go and do what they're doing. And that's exactly what you're doing, right? It's exactly what you're doing. So it's like, you know, this is what leadership looks like in the new paradigm. It's basically everyone just following their heart, but helping other people bring out the most in them, because of course everyone's a reflection of us. So that's why I love doing what I do, because when I help other people on their path, then it's helping me on mine, because that's my purpose. I help other people find their purpose, then that is my purpose. So you've just got a win-win situation going on, haven't you? And everyone is a reflection of a part of us. So it just means that we're expanding and expanding and expanding into more of who we really are. That's how I see it.
I think that's a beautiful way of explaining it. No, it's so true. And I don't know about you, but one of the things that I had to work through initially in starting, you know, the Medicine Woman Collective was I almost had this sense of guilt that, you know, people are paying me and I get to do what I love all day, every day. It always felt like this feels a little bit indulgent, like, and I remember talking to my then coach about it, saying, I've got this weird sense of like, it's all a bit too amazing, actually.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's when you know, like, and I love your analogy of just follow the joy. And I agree. I always say to, you know, the clients I work with, just follow the breadcrumbs. And then those little breadcrumbs, before you know it, you're like, you look back and you go, oh, wow, it all makes sense now. But at the time, it's like this breadcrumb makes no sense in the context of everything else going on in my life. I remember reading an interesting story from Sahara Rose. Do you know Sahara Rose?
I haven't heard of her, no.
Oh, she does a lot of work around Dharma and purpose. And she was telling this story about, you know, she had her business and she was, you know, doing really well in that, and she just felt cool to go learn to DJ, and she, like, it made no sense in the context of her life, but she did it, and now she incorporates it into like her retreats where she has like these like ecstatic dance DJ sets, and I just thought, I love that when we follow those little nuggets of inspiration and, oh, that feels true for me right now, then it all just makes sense in the end, and you just have to trust that process. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think that's the same with a lot of things. I mean, when you say breadcrumbs, I would use the word like baby steps. You know, just take a little baby step, just open the door, just open the door. That's all we need to do, is open the door. And funny enough, that's the messages from this week, which was open the floodgates of the divine. Because when you open the door, the right door, you know, and you just take those breadcrumbs, those baby steps, whatever it is, the energy is going in the right direction. And as soon as water finds a way, that's the floodgates of the divine, and it will come through you. It's not from you. So that's humbling. That's where I get the humbling bit, you know, and this is very much when we're operating from the heart chakra and above, as opposed to the solar plexus of, look what I achieved. I did all of this, you know, which is great. And, you know, it's important to have that feeling in our human experience. But when you expand into the heart chakra, you know, we're really, you know, understanding that it's the life is flowing through us. The divine is flowing through us. And we are literally that vessel, you know, that people talk about. And because it's flowing through us, you as a human, if you're identifying as your human still, you as a human really don't need to do anything. You just need to allow it to flow through. I think that's
really interesting. Yeah, I love that. And it's funny, it reminds me of one of the Zen masters I used to work with. I can remember I was just at the beginning of like starting to offer out treatments and things, and I had this hesitancy, and, you know, am I getting into my ego about this? Is this all about me? Is it about, you know, wanting to prove myself or something? Like, I was trying to contemplate and make sure that it was coming from the right energy, coming from the right place. And I remember him saying, the thing is, when you're on this path of, you know, healing, spirituality, when you know, most of us enter into it initially just for interest or because we want to help ourselves. We can see that wounded part of ourselves. But he was saying, you get to a certain point where it's just not even a question anymore. Of course you want to help other people because your heart's so open. And it makes me really emotional saying that, but your heart is so open, you can't bear the thought of other people suffering. So, wave of emotion.
Truth bomb.
So, and I think we have to trust that, right? We have to trust
definitely. Definitely, completely. And that's where we're at, really, isn't it? Now is just letting it all flow, and you know, having gone from not thinking as being a negative thing, oh, you just don't think, going into thinking, right, a lot, which is great, and you know, it's all part of the course, into let's not think anymore. We don't need to think. We're all, that's the fourth dimensional, you know, mental body. If you're letting the divine flow through you, it's coming from a much higher source than your fourth dimensional mind. Just use your fourth dimensional mind to carry out whatever inspirations are coming through, as opposed to operating from that level. So really, stop thinking is, because a lot of my work has been, as you said, about the beliefs. So we'll kind of install a positive belief to counterbalance a negative one. You know, obviously I love and accept myself, and I trust myself, and all of this, and we can raise people's frequency to align with the frequency of those beliefs and those affirmations or what have you. But actually you then get to a level whereby having no thoughts and even no opinions. Again, you know, we were brought up, I was brought up, you know, sixth form debating society, where you're meant to discuss stuff, and you know, you're considered quite ignorant if you don't have an opinion on everything. And especially in today's world, people want us to have an opinion on everything, and it's just like, I can't be bothered.
I completely agree. It's one of the things that I saw change in me quickly was I used to be very opinionated about many different things. And
me too.
I could just feel my attachment to those things just gently go. And I realized I didn't care. And I also accepted a lot more readily. There's some things we just don't know, and that's okay. And I love that especially in the world of spirituality, I love the fact that I can practice Buddhism. I can, you know, I also do a lot in terms of like shamanic work, and I love the fact that I don't know if it works. I don't know if it's true. And I don't need to, but I know the benefits I see, and that's enough. So
and it's a bit like the inspiration I have for next week's, you know, gathering. I literally put on the post, it's like, I don't know how it's going to go. There are no guarantees. You know, it's like, but I'm just following my inspiration. I'm just putting it out there, and it doesn't matter. It's like, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Because one of my favorite realizations is also that actually nothing matters. Actually nothing matters, because I'm the creator and I'm creating it all. And so if I create something that kind of like supposedly doesn't work out, I'm like, I'll take whatever benefits, and it doesn't matter. Well, what does it matter? Who does it matter to? Because there is only me. And it was an experience and a learning one, and I did what came to me and what have you. But when you let go of all of those expectations, and you let go of all of that control, and you let go of that need to know everything, that's when the divine is really flowing, and then things are miraculous. I mean, that's where we do see the miracles and the, you know, the successes, if that's the right word, for creating, let's say, enjoyable, abundant experiences. Wow, we've spoken for nearly an hour already. But I do want to ask you, so can you tell us a bit more about the coaching in the Medicine Women's Collective, in case anybody listening to this is interested and wants to work with you on a deeper level?
So we have the qualified training, so you can train to be a coach of Ayurveda, which is a 12-month course. It's we go into the history of Ayurveda, the spirituality of Ayurveda, but also the really practical things. So, you know, food, herbs, exercise, relationships, times of year, times of life, these all have an energy pattern to them, and we get to work with those, in harmony with those, as opposed to in resistance to those, or, you know, this is what made me ill, was being conditioned what was healthy from a Western lens, when what Ayurveda teaches us is there is no one size fits all. There is, you know, we all have our own unique energetic pattern, which will mean certain things will nourish us more than others. And our body needs certain things at certain times of the year, and certain practices at certain times of the year. And when we get to work in harmony with that, we have our vitality. which, as well as the spiritual element of Ayurveda, which, you know, I could talk about all day, and you know, we'll go down a rabbit hole with that. So we have that, which, like say, a 12-month program. You find out more on the website, which is medicinewomancollective.com,
which I'll put a link in the description.
Fabulous. And yeah, there's free gifts and all sorts on the website, so you can go have a look. But yeah, that's was a big passion project of mine, because I knew, you know, I'd worked a lot with, I kind of did it backwards, right? I kind of worked, you know, I jumped around a bit. I worked with the mind, then that led to energy, and then I came back to the physical body, which is like an interesting way to do it. I say that Ayurveda incorporates everything. But I realized that some of those fundamental pieces in terms of my physical health were missing, because I didn't know how to look after it. Didn't know how to look after my body. I thought it meant running and eating salads. And I look back now and, you know, have a lot of compassion for that Holly that was trying to look after herself. But she didn't know anything else. She didn't know anything better. So bless her, she was making it all worse. But you know, now I get to not only just use food as medicine, which I love. I mean, I love food, so the fact it gets to be my medicine is brilliant. But also we go into the energetics of plants and how you can use herbs, and as you know, that is another big part of my passion, is, you know, how we can use plants as medicine. And something I've always had there in the back of my mind. I think it started from being a young child, making like lavender pillows with my grandma, and her telling me, you know, they help you relax and you can sleep. And I can remember thinking, wow, that's magic to me. Like that felt like magic. What, you take this plant and it can help you sleep? I was like, wow. And so yeah, now I spend a lot of time working with different plants and in a variety of different ways.
Yeah. And that's where I think you thrive so well, and you're so radiant with alignment, I want to say. I think that's, yeah, well, you're one of these people whose beauty is clearly coming from that alignment that you have with your soul. And we did talk briefly, didn't we, before, about your soul profile, clearly dominant in second, with the relationship between not only the plants but the seasons, nature. That's a very second energy center thing. And then your other dominant ones, of course, are the fourth, which is the divine love and healing, which clearly you're holding space for people. You're bringing the love and the healing into the plants and everything that you do, but also dominant in fifth, which is the divine self-expression, which is the teachers. The teachers. I mean, yes, we can talk because we can carry on for ages, can't we? But it's that teaching, that finding it easy to create a course and have people come, and then that desire to just pass on that information that's served you onto others. That's very much the teacher. That's very much the fifth energy center, and it's very much connected to divine self-expression as opposed to human self-expression, which can come from a place like the pain body or the limiting beliefs. You know, we're not talking about expressing all of that. We're talking about divine self-expression, which is when you allow the divine to flow through you, which clearly you are doing, lovely Holly.
Thank you, lovely. It's lovely to hear like your take in terms of, because it completely resonates with my paths. And I love the fact that we're all, you know, I used this analogy last time that we're all traveling up the same mountain, right? But we're just taking these slightly different paths, and sometimes our paths overlap and sometimes they don't. But I love seeing the reflections and the similarities in the different paths, despite the fact that we often, you know, we'd like to believe that all our paths are very different. But I don't know about you, but the more I learn about religion and spirituality, the more I just think, wow, there's so much overlap in all of these, right? And yeah, so it's beautiful to hear your reflection.
Yeah, but also when you talk about the overlap, I mean, it's, you know, if you take, I think the key is quantum, you know, manifestation or quantum physics. I call it quantum truth bombs. I'm not a quantum physicist, of course, but I think that's where understanding the quantum world and the quantum field, I think, because if you keep going along you know, a religious path or a spiritual path, you know, you're going to get to quantum physics. And if you keep going along the scientific path and you keep going, you're going to get to quantum physics. So I see them actually all born out of the same thing. Well, we're all born out of that quantum field, aren't we? So but again, it's all these different perceptions, and I think it's beautiful because it serves people. There's going to be people that resonate with the words that you know that have come through you. Just little things like, you know, you talk about the lens, you know, as I would say point of view, it's the same thing, but I love the way that you've, you know, the phrases that you've coined already, you know, to express yourself and to explain yourself. That's also very much a fifth energy center thing to do, is to create that beautiful flow of expression. So hopefully people are going to, you know, resonate. And yeah, and if you anyone listening, if you do want to get in touch, check out the link in the description below. I know we could go on forever, but we'll have another interview at another time when we've got other things to talk about as well, because we've covered an awful lot, haven't we, today.
Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you for connecting again. It's just so wonderful and so beautiful to connect with you. But is there anything you want to say or share before we say goodbye?
I don't think so. Just, you know, lovely to chat with you. Hello to everyone in your audience. Yeah, I'd love to hear from you. If you want to know about anything that I mentioned, you want to know more about it, get in touch. We can have a chat.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Lots of gratitude and honoring and mutual appreciation going on here. So that's it for this interview, and I look forward to seeing you all again in the next one. So lots of love to Holly and to anyone listening. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Now I've got to find the stop button.